Hello and welcome back to Sorry You Went Viral, all about the stories setting social media alight and the human stories behind those popular posts. I'm Tim.
And I'm Hannah. Lovely to see you all. On today's show, a football fan down under falls foul of some fans up north. Also coming up, we've got wisdom beyond his years, meet London's youngest cabbie. And are we dating the same guy? There's a teaser for you.
It's been a long time, I admit, but you may remember a video we featured last year about a guy called Liam Stapleton who was terrorising his wife.
Now I'm married, it makes you my wife. High five. I like you. What are you listening to, Gypsy? Is this clock radio? Can you not afford? Is that the quirky check? You know the quirky check? Bing bong, bing bong, bing. Oh my God! You're strong behind plough, and your pants hang like slave of wizard.
Oh God!
Bought it.
I don't think his wife Sarah's quite got over it, but she did send him off, or whether he sent himself off, over 17,000 kilometres from Australia over to England. Being a big Liverpool fan, he wanted to be there in the action to celebrate Liverpool's title win. But being Liam, you couldn't just do it modestly. He had to wind a few people up.
Well done, Liam. Celebrating your victory by really rubbing the people in second place in their nose in it, which was wonderful and not so wonderful for the Arsenal fans, of course, who got particularly wound up, let's say, about this particular piece of content going viral. Some of the Liverpool fans, as you can imagine, they absolutely loved it. Others, though, saying, that you won the league and the first thing you think about is Arsenal. Over 1,000 likes for not a Scouser in sight as well. And of course, remembering Liam's an Aussie, and there he is, like celebrating back in Blighty his club's win. And then 1,700 likes for this comment. Only reason Liverpool won this year is because every other team had an injury crisis, and Liverpool got lucky on injuries. Now, I'm no football expert here. I'd say you probably are on this one, but there's a bit of sour grapes there, I'd say.
But look, football rivalry is big anyway. But when you add social media into the mix, and when you add that kind of antagonistic video into the mix,
yeah, he knows his market, doesn't he, Liam? I mean, like the last time it was Borat, and he's a comedian anyway, so fine. You know your market on there, you know your audience. But then, if you start tapping into the football audience as well, I mean, it's quite clever. I doubt whether he's at all sorry that he's gone viral.
No, I did see there's very different kind of views on he posted on Instagram, and he responded to the nicer ones and just left the kind of criticism and the other fans to pile in on one another. But I think it was actually really funny and clever. I didn't, being a Liverpool fan when Liverpool won, I didn't kind of think about the antagonistic kind of side. I admit I did do LinkedIn posts, kind of joking, those kind of stories about, this is what it taught me about B2B sales and whatever, these things. And I can't remember, I wrote something about what Arne Slot's management taught me about life. I was like, I don't care. Liverpool won the league. We're funny. We're great.
I'm interested. Do you ever get any stick for not being a Scouser though? Because I mean, this guy, he's got a load of stick, hasn't he, from Scousers as well, from Liverpool fans saying, there's one guy, and let's just have a little look at this post. He says, I've tried my best not to be full of hate after what was the best day of my life, but it's got to me now. This guy comes to our city from fuck knows where, takes the piss out of how we speak, our culture and the people of the city, and then claiming to be a Liverpool fan too. I mean, so, I just wonder whether you've got the same amount of vitriol with any of your posts.
No, but to be fair, he did do kind of a very comedic Scouse accent, playing to the cliches, and I can see how it can annoy people.
I'm made up, I'm buzzing. Liverpool are going to win the league. Mo's staying, Verge is staying, even Trent's staying. What are you laughing for? What are you laughing? I'm being serious.
But at the end of the day, it was just a bit of social content, having a bit of laugh. You know, I know people in Liverpool didn't take it seriously in terms of that, and you know, he did. Liam, to be fair, did acknowledge the criticism and showed how he's been, you know, his close connection to the club for years and years gone back, and he posted on Instagram some of these pictures of him at Anfield, and he said, "Boyhood dream came true," welling up emoji, featuring some of the worst haircuts known to man, and they are proper, you know, 2000 era haircuts.
We teased at the beginning of the show saying, are we dating the same guy? I mean, let's face it, Tim, there's every chance with us. But anyway.
That Lewis guy I've seen before. I've seen him hanging around. I did get a picture of you, didn't I? I was on the running machine at gym and just seeing him there, and you know, I wasn't sure, was it the sweat from the running machine or was it just looking at him in his suit and tie?
Oh, honestly. Well, the story we're talking about this time is there are lots of groups on social media sites across the globe, all about, but ostensibly trying to support other women, mostly heterosexual women who are dating, and they're just other women coming together saying, are we actually dating the same guy? Just to make sure that women who join these groups know whether they're maybe dating someone who's a serial multi-dater or maybe got an unsavory background or something like that. So it's all really about just sort of like kinship and safety. However, there's one guy pictured here. His name is Nico D'Ambrosio, and he's actually sued not only a Facebook group in which his picture appeared, but also the organisers of the group, the women who have any link and related to the group, so the women that he was dating. And he's gone one step further. He's tried to sue Meta as well, the owners of Facebook, of course. So the judge who heard this case has thrown it out. He had gone viral for reasons that he didn't like, as I just said. So he tried to sue this group. This is a judge in Illinois. In the US, has thrown out the lawsuit against the Chicago-based Facebook group moderators, the women who dated him, etc., even their parents, apparently. And he had sued them for defamation, invasion of privacy, and doxing as well. You know what doxing is. What is it?
It's basically kind of revealing personal information, kind of names.
Right.
Identifiable information. So even addresses or details, numbers, who knows, could be different things. But the idea is when you're doing it online, that people can identify you and potentially track you down.
So the judge in this case wrote that D'Ambrosio had failed to allege any false statements, and none of the statements included would fit the per se defamation category, that the women's words were inherently damaging. So that was all thrown out. Now, these groups are private. They are only open to women who must pass vetting checks to be admitted into the groups. The administrators will then sort of root out any new profiles and decline any profiles that look fake. So as I said at the start, they are ostensibly out there as a sort of a safety mechanism and a sort of a kinship support site for people to join. They're so popular around the globe. There's a group in New York City that's got 164,000 members. Los Angeles group has 79,000. Toronto, 81,000. Londoners as well. There's a group for Facebook in London, which has got 170,000 women in it. I mean, it's a long time since I've been on the dating scene, but with more and more people kind of, dating in that online now, then I suppose it's quite, you don't just have your friend down the pub kind of like who knows someone they want to introduce you to anymore. Like now you just need to sort of rely on the knowledge of strangers to say like, does anyone else know this guy? I'm dating this guy. And I'd like to know if anyone else is dating him as well. But, he obviously didn't want to go viral. He's had his case thrown out, but one wonders whether, it's going to put off other people from posting images of or details of other men, other individuals to these groups for fear that they then might be targeted by the courts. Who knows? Yeah.
Excuse me. When I was looking purely for research, I should say, for the show, and just seeing, what kind of is Facebook as well, which is kind of a bit of a, in terms of a social site, it's a bit older, but there are loads of these kind of Are We Dating the Same Guy Facebook groups across the country, across the world, as you said. And, I looked on the London one, and you can see, I obviously can't join it, but they set out the rules below. Very clear, no screenshots, no personal information. They say it's about protecting women, not judging men, no libel or defamation. And yeah, you said these groups are private. That was really interesting. The Guardian did a piece about these groups, and they quoted lawyer Mark Stevens, who says there is a defamation risk. Even if these groups are private, it's unlikely that people have the kind of time, money, and resources, but some may, and it's really got to be so careful, even in private groups, about making these claims. And it's really tricky. To read some of what was these women claimed he sent in terms of the messages, the tone of the messages, very kind of offensive and threatening to some of the women named in the lawsuit that he put together and is publicly available through the US court system. You can see why they feel like they need to group together.
But it's not going to be the case for every guy who might be dating multiple people at the same time. Sometimes it is just simply a case of you're just dating more than one person. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no crime committed there. So if they're being called out and their privacy is being exposed or interfered with in some way, just because people feel hard done by, then I can see why that would be potentially quite tricky. So an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on it if any more of these sort of stories come up as well. But in the meantime, we're moving on. And again, this is one of the stories that we teased at the beginning of the show. London's youngest black cabbie.
So I don't know what you're like about driving around London or don't want to talk about doxing, don't want to reveal exactly where in the area. But how are you with your driving and getting around from kind of one place to another?
I'm an excellent driver, and I'm a superb parker, I should say as well. My husband's even said that to me, which is quite a feat. However, I couldn't even get out of Richmond upon Thames without sat-nav, Google Maps. Just can't do it. And within a mile radius of where I live, I'm lost. So full respect for anyone who can sort of like make their way, into London, into a big city, into, even, across a field or something like that. I don't know. North is straight ahead. That's how bad I am.
Well, next time I'll offer for me to have a lift. I'll just take a tube instead, or a black cab.
Yeah, I'll bring your phone.
We're going to introduce you to Mo, who at 21 is London's youngest black cabbie. He explains the story behind it all.
Hi everyone, it's Mo from Sherbet, London, and in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to be London's youngest black cab driver. And thanks to Sherbet, they've taught me everything there is to know about the trade, and I'm forever grateful for it. So before I started the knowledge, I didn't get to sit my GCSEs, so I went into lockdown. So I thought, let me do the knowledge. My dad's a black cab driver, my brother's a black cab driver, and I finished it off. I'm the last to be the black cab driver in the family.
So yeah, we are both kind of London-ish based, so we've got an idea of London black cabs. But I don't know if you realised the amount of effort and the brains you must have to be able to be a black cab driver. So there's a thing called the knowledge, which has been around for about 130 years.
Well, I wouldn't know that exactly, but yeah, I think most of us who've lived in and around London, then everyone's heard of the knowledge. Not that anyone can do it.
For those who don't, you have to memorise the locations of thousands of streets and kind of landmarks, big, well-known places along the way within kind of 6 mile radius of Charing Cross, which is kind of like central of London. So they'll test you on things. I'll just go through a little bit of it. So you get multiple choice tests at the start. So you need to say okay, how do you get from Charing Cross to Buckingham Palace? Okay, sounds straightforward. But to, in your head, read out the directions, like a visual sat-nav, and the roads you take and the ways you go, what you pass along the way. And you've got to get a 60% pass mark to get that past the first stage. And then you have what are called appearances, where you have to do 4 questions, which take you've got to say the shortest route between any 2 points in London. So within thousands of different streets, they will give you've got to then make sure, I think it's like you're going to get a majority of them right, to get that location from one to another, which just blow my mind. I've watched videos online seeing people do this, and it is just incredible. I think, getting from one tube stop to another, I thought was kind of an achievement. But
I know, I couldn't even tell you all the stops on kind of like on the Victoria line or something like that, and I do it all the time. And so I would fail. But Mo,
and then apparently,
no.
Indeed, and the last thing you got to learn, for some reason, you got to know the suburbs, London's suburbs as well. So outside that radius, an additional 25 routes. Once you pass that, easy, you can get your badge. I mean, it's just incredible. And what's amazing is that Mo did it in 2 years. So it normally takes about 3 to 4, 5 years.
Which in itself is astonishing, isn't it? To think that people that's a long time of study. I mean, like it's like doing medicine or something like that.
Basically, so Mo's story and success was highlighted on Twitter. There's Transport for London. They've got an account about taxi and private hire. They posted this photo, and they said, "Congratulations to Mohammed B, our youngest taxi driver, who passed the knowledge of London in 2 years at age 20. And apparently, I didn't realise this, you can't actually be a taxi driver until you're 21, of an official black cab driver. So you can vote, you can go to war, you can drink, but you can't be a taxi driver till 21. So this got 1.6 million views. And, being social media, there was a mixture of reaction. Lots of people praising him. Someone said actually you met him a while back, and said you finally picked up your badge, mate. The wait's finally over. Congratulations. See you out on the road. Which is great. Love to see. Unfortunately, there was a target of offensive and racist abuse. We've seen a lot of that with Twitter, other social sites as well, but increasingly so. And the idea of guy at 20 years old or 21 being a cab driver, the colour of his skin, and it's just like kind of really pretty depressing. And you look at that video we showed earlier, what a lovely guy he seems. He's got shy, but just wants a career that's following his dad's footsteps.
And also, I mean, a lot of people kind of saying, welcome to the job, mate, look forward to seeing you out on the road. But there was also a couple of comments from people who clearly are kind of like a bit sinister or just a bit jealous or something like that about the fact that he'd done it in such a short space of time. There's one message on X, and it says, all I can say is someone must have shone a light on him, because it took me 4.5 years, 7 days and nights a week till 10 p.m. at night. I left school, went home. So someone who could do it in 2 years without taking anything away from the young man, I think standards, suggesting that standards have slipped somewhat, which is a real shame, because to all intents and purposes, as far as we know, and we've just heard from Mo himself, he seems like a really hard-working young man. It's a great achievement, and why shouldn't we all just be proud and wish him well, rather than suggesting there's anything underhand that's happened? It's a shame, I think.
I mean, BBC London posted on Facebook about this story, and one of the comments was about, why bother with the test and the knowledge anymore, because life's moved on. We've got sat-navs. But if you've used sat-navs to get around places you don't know, particularly if you follow their shortcuts.
Oh, I know. I did
they're not
shortcuts
right.
in London recently, actually, and it took me the weirdest route as well. Like, obviously you don't really need a 4x4 in London. I don't have a 4x4, thankfully, but it was such a kind of like bumpy, cobbled, random route that wasn't really even a road that I went down. I was like, you'd need a kind of tractor to be able to do this safely. So yeah, so as much as I am completely and utterly reliant on Google Maps, and I wish I had Mo in my pocket, I'm still going to get stuck. Maybe that means I just stick to the rest of TfL's offerings instead and just get on public transport or just get in Mo's cab.
Indeed. Sherbet, who is the cab firm, basically rents the cab from, who made that film with Mo at the start. They've said about Mo, at Sherbet, we could not be prouder. Mo represents everything we stand for: ambition, professionalism and community spirit. His story is inspiring a new wave of young Londoners to see black cab driving not just a job, but a career filled with opportunity, independence and pride. And they really are really proud of him. There's lots of kind of videos on their site and pictures of them celebrating his achievements. And yeah, good for him. It's just, hopefully he's just not seen a lot of that nonsense online. It's just a great achievement and something to be really celebrated. I would love for him to drive me around London rather than me trying to get my way around relying on sat-nav or Google Maps, as you said.
We should keep an eye on him as well, because you never know. There could be some kind of like savvy content creators out there who are going to try and track down Mo and get in his cab, and then we'll have some footage or some content that's actually from his cab going some obscure route across London as well. So watch this space. He might still go viral again. You never know.
Now it's what it's like to go viral. And for this person we're going to feature, they've gone viral a lot. But Zoe Bread is a very popular content creator. I've been enjoying her TikToks for many years. But she's really gained popularity, mainstream popularity. For this campaign that kind of just started out because she got a parking fine that she felt she didn't really deserve. Take a look.
Then I went back to my car, which I had legally parked, to find a Manchester Council parking ticket on it. Once more, I was apoplectic with rage. I parked under this sign that says pay at machine with an arrow which points over there. And over there is this big yellow pay here sign, so I paid at the big yellow pay here sign, which was at the end of the arrow. You'd think that was good enough. I got all the figures from the council and they're definitely running a scam.
How can I help you?
I'm calling up about a ticket I got. My appeal was rejected. I've been doing a bit of research into the road. In the last 3 days, 3 people have got tickets for the same reason.
What you would need to do is write back in.
It's not even so much about me anymore. It's more that I know that it's happening so often there because it's your fault. I mean, the council's fault. The signage is just totally misleading.
So what I really like about Zoe is it's kind of a very quirky approach to making content, really kind of natural videos, really suited for TikTok and Instagram. But there's also a bit of like a real kind of journalism behind it, kind of new style of journalism, really, exposing kind of where people are not really meeting standards or there's unfairness. And obviously this one is really big for her. She felt Manchester City Council had a misleading sign, confusing things. She thought she went to pay at one, pay machine, actually she meant to pay at another because of this sign pointing the wrong direction. She made 32 TikToks at the time of recording about this.
Wow.
But the reason is not because she was so obsessed with it, but because it was so hard to get an answer out of the council and to get anywhere in sorting this story out. And she gained some really high-profile supporters, including Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex and the City. Don't think it's ever been set in Manchester City council area, but she was delighted that Sarah Jessica Parker shared the story. Eventually, after a month of campaigning, but in a really kind of engaging, funny way, the council agreed to quash any existing penalties and fines and refund those who said who proved in their claims of their appeals, I should say, that they had actually bought a ticket but from the wrong machine. We tried to speak to Zoe, understanding she's very busy. She doesn't tend to do kind of video things. So she did give an interview, a quote to the BBC who covered the story. And she said the only part of this whole story is that I think it's bad the amount of effort it took to get heard which is obviously not possible for a proper person to do. She added, the system doesn't work, but my system does. And she put the success down to being persistent and annoying.
And I'm totally with her on that as well. But I have personal experience of this recently, just trying to sort out get in touch with an electricity company on behalf of my mum. And I had to it wasn't because of any profile I've got or anything like that, but I had to use social media to put a message out there saying, can someone tell me how to get in touch with this company because I need to make a complaint about X, Y, and Z. And eventually, because of me being persistent and annoying and vocal, someone got in touch with me and we were in the process of resolving it all. But I think she's spot on when she says it's the amount of effort that it takes to get heard. It's not just like in the good old days where you just call customer services and then you hopefully get it resolved relatively quickly. Customer services, as all of her content shows, is so bad across the board. It's so difficult to actually speak to someone who can help. You're either speaking to, like a chatbot or something like that online, or you just don't really feel like you get it resolved. And I wonder whether this kind of like consumer journalism that's happening a lot now, this sort of campaigning that she's leading, whether that's going to actually force organisations to kind of change how they deal with Joe Public and actually, deal with their customers.
Look, I'm sure we know about councils really struggling with money, and you can't have the customer call centres as such. But one of the videos she showed the kind of frustration she had that there's a guy called John from Complaints. She got hold of, raised his issue, said, fine, I'll look into it, I'll give you a call back. She had an answer phone message saying, hi, sorry, missed your call. We tried to call you. Could you call me back? No number. She tried to press the number, like the redial function on the phone. And she just said, no, you got to call back, and basically this horrible loop of things. And yeah, you're right. I think what's really interesting as well is not just this, that then, ITV featured the story like we are doing now, using her content. And, she was like, okay, yeah, fine. But then ITV had also put a copyright strike against her because she used a small snippet of ITV's copyright. And again, it's that kind of approach of going, well, hold on, that's not fair. If you're doing that to me and you're using my content, that's not fair. And it's a fairness thing, which she does really well, but in a kind of a strong way, but not in like a kind of hectoring way, but really kind of engaging way where you can really empathise and sympathise with her situation.
I think as far as I know, like ITV have taken off that strike against her. Is that right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that sort of resolved that bit. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. But yeah, I think all of her work and all of her content is highlighting that there's a gap at the moment between, the relationship that organisations have with their customers, whatever the size of the organisation. It is time for our timeline cleanser. Now, Tim, tell me, have you ever done a cruise? Fancy doing a cruise?
No, because I'm kind of stuck on a boat for a long time.
Don't really like that. Okay. What about, have you ever woken up with a hangover in all of your clothes from the night before, not really quite sure about what's happened? Well, you're not alone.
I was young and naive a long time ago.
You're not alone. We've all been there. But meet Saff now, who's definitely been there and has the content to prove it.
Don't ask. I've woken up. Still fully dressed from last night. Don't go there. I've done some things I didn't mean to do. I was danced off with a guy who was over 50. And I couldn't keep up with him because he was done stuff fast. What's his secret in life?
I mean, it's just fantastic, isn't it? We can all relate, and it's just the way that it's all filmed and edited is just so spot on as well. 5 million views on TikTok. Saff was actually on this cruise with the Celestyal Cruises. She was gifted a free stay, and then produced all this content. And then what's brilliant about it is that there's loads of comments on the content. Obviously, 5 million views. Lara said, obsessed with your journey of overcoming your agoraphobia to breakdancing on the dance floor with strangers. And then brilliantly, Saff then replies to some of these comments. So she's replied saying, finally feel like I'm living. So she's like living her best life, even though she looks like she's at death's door in the video itself. And on a cruise where you can't even hide the next day, says Dawn Blue. And she replies, exactly, I've just seen the bar lady and she said hello and laughed. And I definitely feel like that was a deja vu for me reading that. I was like, I feel like I've been there before. I've been in that film before. Sherry says the worst thing is bumping into him and acting like you weren't BFFs. And she said dreading it. I assume by that they mean her breakdancing partner, her dance partner.
Yeah. He talks about one of the comments about her agoraphobia, and she's actually talked really openly about her struggles with that.
Right.
I didn't know that until I just saw this video of her just having a great time, but very, very hungover. And I think she's so kind of like open and personal about it, which kind of really resonates with people.
And maybe it will encourage more people to then go on a cruise as well, rather than dreading it, thinking, well, what if that happened to me? It's actually just like in that whole kind of like, face your fears thing, be in a confined space with people who you've made a complete fool of yourself with in previous hours, and then go and have to sit down and have, breakfast or a cup of tea with them next morning. Ooh, I mean, I don't know, maybe that encourages some people to spend the money, splash the cash.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. She that video actually, she is part of like a pay or a content partnership with I can't remember the cruise, Celestyal Cruises. So I think something like she got a free stay and she made content. But what's so good about it, I think it's really good for Celestyal Cruises as well, is 5 million views on TikTok, and that kind of really it isn't that polished kind of Judith Chalmers, look at this beautiful sunset. It's showing people kind of fun on these cruises, different ages, and probably great advertising for them as well. So it's a bit of a win-win.
Because I was enjoying myself that much. It was too good to keep it away from you. 11 million people were tuning in to my videos in the 7 days. People in South Africa, Greece, Botswana, Sweden, and not forgetting the UK. I've never been on a cruise, and I had the time of my life. I've also had so many direct messages off lovely people saying, Saff, I'd never thought about going on a cruise, but you've made me want to go on one. And thank you to everyone who's already booked the Celestyal Cruise. Will I be going on another adventure soon? I don't know. Being in agoraphobia recovery for a whole year, I'm back to the Saffy that I once was, and I'm just feeling good, and I can't wait for what the future holds. God knows I want to break free. Ahoy!
But I don't think I would want to have a hangover at sea, trapped inside, and then have to go. She then had to go off and do a sightseeing tour that day. It's like, I just want to lie in bed.
No, at least you got to be on dry land. Let's face it.
Indeed. But look, if a cruise company wants to host So You Went Viral for a series of shows,
we're there. Sign us up. We can even do the breakdancing as well.
Get Mo to drive the ship. Well, I don't know, you drive a ship, you kind of steer a ship, don't you? With his skills.
What's his knowledge along the River Thames?
Exactly. The River Thames, that's doable for me. I don't mean like across the Nile, it takes weeks away. There we go. All ties in so nicely into the show. That's the end of this week's show. Thank you for joining us again. It was a delight to be back, and sorry it took so long recording again, but we won't leave it so long next time. We will be posting all the links to the videos and posts that we talked about in the show on the either the podcast or in the YouTube description, so you can see them. And also we'll be clipping up the best bits and tagging in the content creators for you to engage with them. But thanks again, Hannah. Lovely to see you. We'll be booking that cruise with Lewis again. Now we've got our little threesome together. Now we're sharing the same guy. So to speak. Anyway, I think I'll probably finish there before I get myself in any more trouble.
Before he starts suing us, yeah, exactly. That's probably a good place to end it. Good to see you again, Tim. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.